Hello, welcome to F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. We will be here for the next few weeks. I know none of these circumstances are ideal, but so it goes. By now, you should have the link both to the audiobook from YouTube of The Great Gatsby, and the PDF file has been shared to you. In this recording, I'm just going to cover the first 2 pages of this really extraordinary novel. So we have several layers here. Behind me, we have The Great Gatsby. In my eyeglasses, we have The Great Gatsby. Here, we have The Great Gatsby. And inside those eyes, there's also something. This is going to be about layers upon layers upon layers. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, dated 1925. So, you've already encountered this text, and we'll be looking at the ways in which Alison Bechdel used that text and references to it in... Oh no. So all of that will be coming. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. He didn't say any more, but we've always been unusually communicative in a reserved way, and I understood that he meant a great deal more than that. In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that has opened up many curious natures to me, and also made me the victim of not a few veteran bores. All right. So, we begin with the prepositional phrase, in my younger. What do we know immediately about the narrator? That's right. First person singular. What else do we know? Somebody's got a father, which places us inside the patriarchy. So, sure, we don't know that it's a masculine narrator yet. We'll soon learn that it's Nick Carraway. But this is very much like boy talk, father talking to the son, giving knowledge of what it's like to be a man. And what do? Well, you don't criticize people. And then we get this highly bizarre phrase, we've always been unusually communicative in a reserved way. So this is going to introduce this constant theme of paradox and kind of irreconcilable difference that we see in Nick's narrative style. He immediately reveals it when it says, well, first he's an overreader. I understood that he meant a great deal more than that. Well, he didn't actually ask him, so he wasn't having a conversation. He just made assumptions about the situation. In consequence to having made this assumption about the situation that he didn't actually follow up on, he says, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments. So the question was going to be, is he going to do that? Well, immediately we find no, because this habit that has opened up many curious natures to me has also made me the victim of a few veteran bores. He's immediately criticizing. Notice I'm going to continue doing the back and forth, the green font versus the purple font. Purple is going to be his assertions about himself, and green is going to reveal his biases. The abnormal mind, other people, is quick to detect and attach itself to this quality when it appears in a normal person, me, Nick. And so it came about that in college, I was unjustly, so other people have a bias toward him, accused of being a politician because I was privy to the secret griefs of wild, unknown men. Most of the confidences were unsought. Frequently, I have feigned sleep, preoccupation, or a hostile levity when I realized by some unmistakable sign that an intimate revelation was quivering on the horizon. For the intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms in which they express them, are usually plagiaristic and marred by obvious suppressions. Reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope. Right, Nick? Sure thing. All right, so very clearly, we're going to have to unpack a fair amount. So we start with these two different kinds of people. We have the abnormal mind that it seems suspicious and desperate to attach itself to another person. And we have the normal person. That's going to be Nick. So this idea of immediate masculine attraction and attachment we have here in the third paragraph. We have unjust accusations, and then we have Nick's kind of most prominent characteristic. He is privy to the secret griefs. To be privy is to be in the private knowledge of somebody, right? To have access to their private thoughts. Interestingly, a privy is also a term for an outhouse. So there's that. And they're wild, unknown men. Of course, by becoming privy to the men, they're no longer unknown, they're known. He doesn't seem to like this great burden, right? Most of the confidences were unsought. I didn't want them. Frequently, I have feigned. We got some alliteration there. Feign means to fake. Sleep, preoccupation, or hostile levity, right? Like antagonistic happiness when I realized by some unmistakable sign that an intimate revelation was quivering on the horizon. And now he's going to critique all young men for the intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms in which they express themselves, are usually plagiaristic and marred by suppressions. So, why are they plagiaristic? Because these young men have read books, and that's where they've seen the idea of emotions, and they're stealing them and articulating them again, or as somebody else in their acquaintance. To be marred is to be, you rub something out by obvious suppression. So they're not even telling the whole truth. It's like, oh man, Nick, I got this thing to tell you. I need to tell you. And then they don't even tell the whole thing. And now Nick is frustrated by that. However, hey, reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope. And if Nick does one thing, it's he reserves judgments. No, the point is he does not do this. We continue. We're now in the fourth paragraph, just a sentence in, a couple sentences in. And what we'll now achieve is this self-awareness that Nick is putting together this book. When I came back from the East last autumn, I felt that I wanted the world to be in uniform and at a sort of moral attention forever. I wanted no more riotous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. Oh my God, like the dude's a douche, but he can write. What a sentence. Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. So immediately we get some geography and temporality. He is coming from the East back to the Midwest, and it was last autumn. So all of this is pretty immediate. And he expresses two immediate desires. And he wants the world to be in uniform. Well, how do you render the world uniform? You make sense of it by writing it. And no more riotous excursions. This is telling you what you're going to get. Hey, if you keep reading, you're going to find riotous excursions and privileged glimpses into the human heart. Like, this is the trailer to the book. This is why you're going to turn the page. Only Gatsby, whose very name has a gasp inside it, right? When you say it, Gatsby, this explosive energy. The man who names his name to this book, we have the fourth wall shatter. He knows you're reading. And Gatsby, he's exempt from this reaction. Nobody's exempt from these reactions. Nick is highly prejudiced. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. Didn't he just say he needed to reserve judgment, right? He's criticizing. So now we get our first glimpse of Gatsby just a little ways on. This responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby impressionability which is dignified under the name of the creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely I shall ever find again. No. Gatsby turned out all right in the end. It is what preyed on Gatsby, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams, that temporarily closed out my interest in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. And here we learn why Nick loves Gatsby. Gatsby has an extraordinary gift for hope. We're going to see something about that in a second. A romantic readiness. There we have some alliteration that he's never found in another person. And then no dash and the great sentence. Gatsby turned out all right at the end. There you go. Spoiler. And now Nick does something amazing. It is what preyed on Gatsby. This is an attack on passive Gatsby, right? Something preyed on Gatsby. He was the victim. What foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams. So something is floating in the wake. This is a water metaphor. And then we have dreams. And it temporarily closes out, right? That's amazing. He's been saying all this stuff. It lasts for a while. And it closed out his interest, him being Nick, in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. Abortive basically means to cut something off short, right? You know the word abortion. Short-winded also means something similar. You run out of breath. So we have a very nice idea of the sorrows and the elations, the happiness, both of which are shortened. So here's my annotations of this page. And what I wanted to point to is how Nick described himself as reserving judgment being a matter of infinite hope. And what does he see Gatsby has? An extraordinary gift for hope. So what I want you to do for Thursday before I talk about that is, of course, finish chapter 1, and then go on the forum and post any passages you found curious or beautiful or want me to discuss. And I want you to think specifically about this following on page 4. What are the shining secrets that only Midas and Morgan and Maecenas knew? You might have to look up one of those figures, both, or all three, but I really encourage you to do that because it'll help you see what Fitzgerald's going for. All right, see you Thursday.